All right, I'm gonna see how fast I can add a remote probe to this ring freeze flood sensor. This is the fourth one I've done. So we're gonna open it up. And what I've discovered is the best location is gonna be right here across these two screws, because there's no other components nearby. And that maps to just to the left of that R in ring. So take a little small screwdriver, small drill, pop a hole right there in the cover. And I've got some wire just out of an old piece of Cat 5. Probably stranded wire would be a little better, a little easier to work with, but I'm just gonna run that wire through. And on the interior side, we can start with that first. What I'm gonna do is just tie a knot for strain relief. And then in the two ends, I'm just gonna put a little loop in each end, and that loop's gonna go under the screw, each of those two screws. So when you look at these two screws on the inside, those map to the trigger points on the bottom, and all you have to do to detect water is basically short those two together, right? So it doesn't really matter if it's touching those 2 points exactly, or if you extend it like this. I don't know why they don't offer it in an extended version. A lot of other similar devices do have an extended version. So I'm just gonna put a little loop, a little hook in our wire there to wrap around the screws. The screws are quite small. And some of the other ones I soldered these, soldered these loops, but this is solid wire, so it may not be 100% necessary. Give us a little better bend here. Okay, so there we have two loops, and like I said, we're gonna focus on these two over here because they're really not nearby to anything else. By the way, the reason to do this, the ring does have a gasket around here, but they claim it's not waterproof, right? So if you want to be able to detect water in a place that might be submerged, for example, in my case, I have a sump pump, and I want to know before the sump pump overflows that there's water there. I don't want to know after. So putting the sensor next to the sump is less than ideal. So what I'm doing, I've got my finger keeping the probe in, otherwise it'll fall out along with its gasket. And I'm just gonna try to use 3 hands here and get the screw through my hook. Seat it back in there, drive it home. And I'm gonna try to do that without shorting it, because if I short it, then I'm gonna have to stop the video to answer the phone call from Ring. All right, so the first one's done. Do the second one. So the other application for this is, let's say you have one of these flood sensors underneath your kitchen sink, but you want to be able to also detect a leak under your dishwasher, right? So you could have it under the sink and then have a little extension wire that goes under the dishwasher. In that case, you just need to have a mechanism to make sure that the other end of the wire is staying on the floor and not, flying up in the air. Another use case might be, if you want to be able to sense underneath a washing machine, but also have it sense, nearby to that washing machine, or something like that, right? So, excuse me. All right, so that's pretty much it for the inside. The only other thing we're going to do, though, is just for kind of belt and suspenders, put a little dab of hot glue, poor man's silicone, on that hole right before we pull the wire through, and that'll give us a hint of waterproofing, and then that knot's going to give us, more than enough strain relief. So we'll do that. I'm just waiting for the glue gun to heat up. While we're waiting, I'll talk about the other end. So on the other end, I'm just going to put a knot, keep these wires together. And what I've discovered the best way to do this is if you have one of the wires a little shorter than the other, then there's no chance of them bumping into each other. And you want to have it short enough that a single drop of water from a splash isn't going to bridge that, right? So in my case, I'm running a sump pump. Occasionally there's a couple splashes, and one drop of water would be a false alarm. So what I've found is if I separate these by about 3/4 of an inch or an inch, and they're one on top of each other, and I'll do that. So I'll just take the white one and I'll cut it about an inch shorter, okay? And then I'll strip it. Strip both of them. So now, the way that we're going to get a detection is when water reaches this high level here, and it's bridging down between these two levels, right? So we won't get a false if these guys touch each other. So that's ideal. So I'm just going to tin the ends of those and hot glue those together. But before I do that, looks like, let's see, is our hot glue warmed up yet? Not quite, so let's tin it first. I would say, tinning that, probably optional, but maybe give you a little corrosion resistance on that wire. Is that iron hot? There we go. All right, so that's all the soldering. I guess we could have soldered the loops, but we didn't. I think they're gonna be okay. So now with the hot glue, I'm going to see if we focus there. I'm just gonna glue these wires together just to keep them nearby to each other. Might need to raise the temp on that hot glue. All right, good. So that's kind of all we need for that. And over here on our lid, I'll get the knot close. Put a big blob of glue in there. And we'll just quickly pull the knot into that blob on the inside. And on the outside, we'll add a little bit more glue, but first we can reassemble this. So reassemble that, get the lock. And we'll add a little bit of insurance, inject right into that hole. Again, we're not submerging this thing anyway, but just to be safe. And then finally, let's test it. So I've got a bottle of water here, and what I'm going to do is turn off this light so that you can see the sensor. You should be able to see that a blue flash when we submerge this in water. So here we go. And then, of course, I'm going to have to answer that phone call pretty quick. So thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Let me know what you think. There's the blue flash. I heard the announcement from my base station. I got the notification on my phone, and the phone call's coming any second. So it took about 9 minutes to do. Once you knew what you were doing, here comes the phone call. All right, so that's the whole thing. I used about 5 feet of wire here. What I found in the past, I made them with like 3 or 4 feet, and they were a little bit short just for my use case. But obviously, probably practically any length of wire would work. And let me show you how I've got it installed on mine, what I'm doing with my sump pump, but obviously your situation is going to vary. All right, so here we are at the sump. This is one of my other sensors that I've done before. There's my extension wire, and what I have is just these Velcro tie wraps, and then there's the extended probe there. That was the first one I did before I realized that I shouldn't keep them equal length, because if they're equal length, they can bang into each other and false alarm. So I have them equal length, but sort of separated horizontally by about an inch. But what I found the better application would be to have them be sort of coaxially aligned, but have about an inch of distance between the two ends of the wire. So that's how I'm using it in my sump. You can see it's about 4 inches below the the sump overtopping. So it's enough that I'll know that the pump has failed and I'll have some time to fix it. I'll get the alert. And then of course, if there was some other source of water in the area, then the ground, the regular probes would still work. Thanks a lot. Let me know what you think, and if you have any suggestions for that. See you.